Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lipstick and Cyber podcast presented by F12.net, where we explore the dynamic intersection of technology, security, and the incredible women leading the charge in these fields. I'm your host, Maheen, and today we'll be discussing the critical role Indigenous women play in technology, specifically how they are bridging the gap between tradition and innovation. In today's episode, we'll explore how Indigenous heritage is influencing the tech industry, focusing on education, leadership, and empowerment. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or passionate about community driven change, today's discussion with our esteemed guests will provide invaluable insights. Joining us today is Sharon Angus, a Cisco Certified IT Instructor at the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technologies, SIIT. Sharon has over 20 years of experience working exclusively with Indigenous organizations, including Thunderchild, First Nation, and Saskatoon Tribal Council. Her expertise spans networking, security, and IT education, and she's been a driving force in shaping the next generation of Indigenous IT professionals. Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm great. It's Friday the 13th and
I know.
looking forward to the weekend.
It is. No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Your work is so inspiring, and we cannot wait to dive into today's topics of tech, heritage, and empowerment. Now, Sharon, to begin things off, I mean, you've spent over 20 years working in IT exclusively with Indigenous communities, and this is a very powerful choice that has no doubt shaped your career in meaningful ways. What drew you to work specifically with Indigenous organizations, and how has this focus impacted your career and professional growth?
Part of it is, so first of all, I am Indigenous. I'm on my father's side. I'm from Thunderchild First Nation in Saskatchewan in Treaty 6 territory. He is Plains Cree, and my mother is Mohawk, Iroquois Mohawk from Akwesasne out on the New York State, uh, Ontario and Quebec border. Like it covers all that little nexus there, and that's part of the reason. The other reason is just understanding the need for technical people within our communities and understanding that what our needs are, as well as the infrastructure that should be there, but oftentimes isn't, right?
Right.
So being able to understand that and be able to sort of be I always feel like I'm a little bit of an intermediary person between what the entire world is doing and trying my best to communicate that to my community members and what my community members need with what's going on outside the world and trying to make sure that those two sort of mesh together.
Right. That's
And
truly
I really
inspiring.
love it.
Yeah, that's really inspiring, Sharon. It's so remarkable to hear how deeply connected your work is to these communities and how you've really found purpose through technology. Now, what advice would you give to others that are looking to use technology to make a similar impact within their own communities?
First of all, I would just say go for it. I mean, I sort of accidentally fell into IT. I was actually going to university to become a lawyer. Well, first as a teacher, and then I was going to switch into law, but I never quite made it because I kept getting drawn back into IT. It,
Hmm.
my reserve Thunderchild was the first one that gave me that opportunity. I was just known in the community as somebody who was good with computers, and I just sort of just kept falling into these roles and going back to it, even when I was trying to do all of these other things, get my Bachelor of Arts and or my Bachelor of Education, and it just I found that I couldn't get away from it. It was just I had such a strong draw for me, and if anybody has that, like go for it. There's so many opportunities within technology, and the fact that every industry uses it, so you're not limited by uh, just being in tech. You also have these other opportunities to branch out. Like for me, my focus is actually education and technology. Right? I
Right.
did a lot of the support work and everything, but a lot of my jobs involved a lot of training. So that was just something I felt good about. There's also, if you're coming from a mining background or something, all industries use technology, uh, police work, medical, all of that. If there's something that you find an interest in and actually can tie it to technology, you're pretty much open to anything. So I would absolutely say just go for it.
No, thank you, Sharon, for sharing your journey and the profound impact technology can have when aligned with community values. It's so clear that working with purpose can truly shape both careers and the lives of others in powerful ways. And to our listeners, it's really important to remember that career choices don't just shape our professional paths, but they also contribute to the well being and empowerment of the communities we serve. And Sharon's journey shows us how tech can become a powerful tool in such a positive change. So stay with us for more insights from Sharon. Now, Sharon, let's shift our focus to the next topic, which explores your role as an educator in the IT support specialist program at SIIT. And at SIIT, you're part of an incredible program that covers, a wide range of IT topics from hardware to virtualization. And as technology rapidly evolves, certain fields stand out as critical for the future. Which area of IT excites you the most, and why do you think it's so crucial for the future of tech education?
For me, it's absolutely networking. Again, I kind of fell into it by accident. um, but it's something that really sparks my interest because there's the whole purpose to networking is bringing people together and making information accessible and a sense of security and everything like that. And when we talk about our communities, that those are all words that we use when we think about having a community, right? Is that sense of security, that access to information, history, and ideas that can move us forward. Uh, all of those things really make that's all built into the concepts of networking. And I find a lot of it I'm able to identify, um, I see similarities in between what networking is and how we can scale upwards, how we can create more connection. One of my favorite stories to tell my students is about when networks were finally becoming accessible to home users. I actually started making friends online. I have friends I've known for 20 years and never met them in person. So that having that access really opens up and connects communities just like just the networks themselves, right? Uh, we're always adjacent to another network. Well, we're always adjacent to another community, and making those connections becomes really important and allows us to uh, really enjoy the human experience as well as just downloading a really fun video.
Of course, and it's so fascinating to hear your thoughts on the future of IT. Sharon, I mean, you're at the forefront of preparing next generation of tech professionals. But how do you keep students engaged and inspired in such a fast-paced and ever-changing industry?
To be completely honest, memes. I love using them in class. It injects a little bit of humor. If they don't get the joke, I already know they didn't do the reading.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they missed that lecture or something like that. But it gives context to the students. It's fun, um, and oftentimes it's a way of connecting to them personally as well. You know, oh, lots of gamers come into my classroom. More than half of the every year is full of gamers, right? And I myself being a gamer, I use that as a means of connection to my students, and it helps really give them context. Why do we do things a certain way? Why do you game on a wired connection as opposed to a wireless?
Right.
And seeing them once I've explained the reason why, seeing that little light bulb go off in their heads is just, they're like, oh, so that's why we do it this way. And it's the same thing with a lot of things in life,
Mhm.
is just that we do things for a certain way without even really fully understanding it until we have context. And that's my favorite part of being in the classroom and making sure that they understand what they're doing when they get out.
Well, that was truly enlightening, Sharon. I mean, your insights on using technology for community impact are invaluable. And listeners, the future of technology really depends on education and continuous learning. So whether you're just starting out your career, tech career, or looking to advance, there's always room to grow. And experts like Sharon help guide the way. So please don't miss out on her next insights. Now, Sharon, let's shift focus to your role as one of the few female Cisco certified instructors in Saskatchewan, where you're helping shape the future of IT professionals in the region. Um, what obstacles did you encounter on your path, and how did you overcome them to reach your position today?
Well, there's the regular, which uh, harassment. you know, a lot of that stuff was is happening so less nowadays, which is really great to see. But part of that has to do with the representation, right? When I first started, I remember attending a tech conference about, I guess it would have been about 10, 15 years ago. And I made a tweet about it. And the tweet was, I haven't seen this many men in white button down t shirt. And so, white button down, or not white button down, plaid button down shirts, and so few women since the last time I went to one of these things. Right. So that representation, if you feel like you're the only one in the room, it can be really intimidating to stand up for
Mhm.
and defend yourself should something come up. And there were a lot of times very early in my career where it felt like maybe I wasn't in the right place because I didn't look like everybody else.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of the a lot of our the communities and organizations I worked with were using outside contractors or hiring people not from the community. And part of that was we just didn't have access to that type of training or access to the technology at the time. And I just happened to get really lucky as time went on that I was offered and uh, took advantage of a lot of opportunities that don't necessarily come to everybody. So, in a lot of cases, for my past and my contributions or whatever, I feel there was a lot of serendipity involved. But at the same time, I didn't let those opportunities go either. So, if you're going to be a part of that, make sure that you're a part of it. Don't let other people tell you that you can't. Because if you know you can, then do it, show them. And then it's a lot harder. It's been getting a lot easier now, which is what we always want. We want the next generation to not have to struggle the way we did,
Right.
right? Just like every parent wants their child to do better than they did. Well, that's what I want. I think of my students as my children. I want them to do better, to have more access and less barriers than what I went through. And that's basically what I just try to bring to the classroom at all times.
No, Sharon, your perseverance is truly commendable. It's stories like yours that show how vital representation is in tech. What would you say to other women, especially Indigenous women, who are considering a career in the tech industry?
Oh, I would say go for it. Absolutely, just do it. I've had some real, like I said, it was very different back then, but now I've over the years I've been really fortunate to have worked with some women who broke the barrier before I did, right? And I was not riding on their coattails, but going through doors that they had already opened. One of my favorite was one of my mentors from my own community. She worked with um, the city of Calgary's IT department for 7 years before she came back to our community, and that's where I learned a lot from her. And that's what I want to do I want to be that for other women coming in as well. There's Find somebody who appreciates the work you do and learn from them. If they're going to offer that if they're going to offer that what do you call, sorry, uh, that experience and their time, take it, do it. And it doesn't matter who it comes from. It can be a man, it can be a woman, it could be somebody who's not from the community, but as long as you're taking that information and sharing it with others, then whatever you do is great.
It is. No, thank you for sharing that, Sharon. Your experience is truly inspiring, and it highlights the importance of using technology to create meaningful impact. And to our listeners, especially women breaking barriers in tech, Sharon's story is a testament to resilience. So remember, no challenge is too great when you're passionate about making a difference. So please stay tuned for more insights on how tech empowers communities. Now, Sharon, let's dive deeper into another important area, which is key networking trends for aspiring IT professionals, where your expertise can provide valuable guidance for those that are entering the field. Um, with a focus on networking, including CCNA certifications, what do you see as the key trends in the networking industry that the new students should be aware of?
Oh, I would absolutely look into like A plus certification is so basic, right? Pretty much everybody has access to that. That's something that you would do on a desk support job. But if you're looking to really get into IT, to really uh, grow with the industry, I absolutely recommend virtualization, cloud computing, and networks. All three of them are deeply related to one another, and they are what makes technology and information more accessible to more people. Like I said, gamers, they don't even most people never even heard of virtualization. But if you're a gamer who plays things like Call of Duty and things like that, where you're that's virtualization. And I love seeing that in the students because then once they realize, oh, well, this is something I've been familiar with, and again, giving them context. Cloud security is a big issue because, of course, the more secure something is, the less accessible it is. The more accessible it is, the less secure it is, kind of thing. And finding balance. And if we can apply that how we find balance within ourselves and apply that to what makes us safe but what also makes us open to the world at the same time, right? So I always try to think of uh, think of technology as more of less as hardware and software and more of the opportunities and connection it can bring uh, between individual people.
That's really insightful, Sharon. It's clear that staying informed on these trends will be critical for anyone that is looking to build a strong foundation in networking. Now, as these trends continue to shape the industry, what skills or certifications would you recommend students prioritize to remain competitive in the job market?
Well, the obvious one is A plus certification, Cloud Plus, all Security Plus, all through CompTIA. Those ones are really good. Cisco Net Academy has a lot of free courses and things if you want to dip your feet into just to see what you might be interested in, what might your focus be. There's a lot of micro certifications that are free or low cost. If it's something you just want to test the waters a little bit, that would be a great way to start. Um, but overall, definitely like Cisco, CompTIA, there's all sorts of individual certifications once you start focusing on certain things or specializing. I always tell my students when you our program is training them to be like a general practitioner, a family doctor, but you don't go to your family doctor if you have cancer. You go
Mhm.
to you go to a neurologist or a specialist, right? And that's what once they've got their foot in the door, they can choose to decide whether they want to become a podiatrist or a neurologist or an oncologist kind of thing, right? There's that sort of the same similar idea. And I would absolutely recommend if you have an interest, go for it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it.
Thank you for those invaluable insights, Sharon. It's so exciting to hear how these emerging trends are shaping the future of networking and the opportunities they present for aspiring IT professionals to grow and really thrive in the industry. Now, Sharon, throughout your extensive career working with Indigenous communities, you've seen firsthand how technology can be a powerful tool for growth and development. And in today's world, tech is becoming more accessible and impactful than ever before. How do you think technology can help empower Indigenous communities, and what role do you see tech education playing in that empowerment?
Well, there was a term that was coined back in I guess it would have been late 90s, early 2000s, the concept of the digital divide, people who have access versus people who don't. And in a lot, when I first got started, part of the issue was infrastructure. Uh, Infrastructure is a huge thing there. If you don't have that, the proper infrastructure to accommodate the types of communication that you want to utilize, well, you're not going to be able to utilize that. And what that ends up meaning is that you become further disconnected from the movement forward, right? So I would absolutely say that having this access to information, and it opens up other opportunities, not just that access to information, but access to work, to employment, access to education. So there's a lot of programs now that you can take online courses and things like that, so you don't have to leave your community. And a lot of people feel that sometimes they feel like they have to leave the community, which means breaking some ties and losing contact with what's at home,
Hmm.
right? And it's great to be able to go out into the world and explore and everything like that, but if you're going out there and not bringing that information or those skills back to the community, then that can cause a problem on its own, because now you're not sharing that with your own community and everything. um, for me, this teaching job, working at SIIT, teaching networking and stuff like that, is my way of bringing that back to not just my community, but their communities as well. 90% of our students at SIIT um, are Indigenous First Nations or
Hmm.
Métis, right? So knowing that they're going to be able to take that back to their communities really keeps me going, and I love it. So that because that concept of infrastructure isn't just the physical, like, cable, satellite, fiber optics, all of that, sure, that's a part of the infrastructure, but so is
Right.
having the people. The
Hmm.
human aspect of it is part of that infrastructure. So that makes knowing that I'm hoping that I'm contributing back to that, not just my community, but all the communities here in that SIIT covers.
It's such a powerful perspective, Sharon. It's inspiring to hear how technology can really drive real, lasting change within these communities. But what steps do you think can be taken to ensure that more Indigenous communities have access to the necessary resources and training to fully leverage technology?
But again, it's going to come back to that infrastructure. The Like I said, like reserves and everything like that. The community is usually very spread out, and when it comes to providing that proper infrastructure, a lot of times it's not cost inducive. Like, the cost outweighs the benefits for some people, right? And if you make that investment in the infrastructure, the people are really going to feel that, right? One of the biggest things that I'm so excited about right now that falls under that infrastructure is Starlink, which is
Mhm.
bringing high speed, reliable internet to rural communities. And that's really exciting to see, because now the kids who are growing up in that environment have that access that we weren't privy to when we were kids,
Mhm.
right? So it's the infrastructure is so important, and the fact that Starlink is there for all of us to be able to access, cell phone towers to access data on our smartphones, all of these things. Having high speed internet in the home makes such a huge difference. And if people invest in that infrastructure, communities invest in that infrastructure, there's so many benefits that come with it that sometimes the cost is worth it. And
Mhm.
it's just convincing the right people that that cost is worth it.
No, you're right. And thank you so much for sharing those insights because it's clear that technology paired with proper education has the potential to create transformative opportunities for Indigenous communities. But before we wrap up, Sharon, let's have some fun with our beauty and balance segment. Because, balancing a career in tech with personal well being can be a challenge, especially for women breaking barriers in male dominated fields like IT. So let's dive into it. Now, the theme of this lipstick and cyber is all about bringing together, beauty and technology. So I'll throw a first question at you. How do you balance the often fast-paced, high-tech environment of IT with self-care and personal expression?
Well, one of the great things about working in technology is that I do have a lot of resources. I love streaming. I love video games, kind of thing. I get to be in contact with my family. My siblings live all over Turtle Island. I
Mhm.
have a sister in California, a brother in Phoenix. One of my kids lives in California. All of these, and it being able to communicate with them gives keeps us close,
Right.
and that's that personal connection with just knowing that my family is there for me, so that way we can stay in contact, despite the distance.
Oh, we love that. Now, as someone working in the traditionally male-dominated field of IT, have you ever felt the pressure to downplay your style, and how do you really navigate that?
Yeah, for a long time, it I couldn't. You have to dress a certain way. Mostly, it has to do with the job. I can't, wearing a skirt and climbing under a desk to,
Mhm.
to troubleshoot a network connection is not great. So, um, but it, oftentimes training, the fact that I got to do a lot of training in my job, uh, really, those were the days I got to dress up. I get to wear a skirt and put on makeup today.
Aw,
But most of the time, I spent most of my career wearing bunny hugs and leggings. So,
right. Okay, that's good. No, but do you have any, beauty rituals or self-care practices that help you stay grounded in such a high demand career?
for the most part, I try to get a lot of sleep because some days are like I consume an insane amount of coffee during the day, and
Right.
then I get at night I try and relax. I stream my favorite music playlists, and I just take time for myself, hang out with my dog, try and drink
Oh,
water to combat the lack of uh, combat the coffee.
right.
But yeah, just lots of water, just trying to getting as much sleep as I possibly can. So
That's good. No, water, like hydration and sleep is important to keep yourself, in such a high demanding job. Um, Now as a Plains Cree and Mohawk woman, what does it mean to represent your indigenous heritage in the tech world, and how do you incorporate elements of your culture into your work?
well, that's actually a really fun question because SIIT is an Indigenous institution. There's only four credit granting post secondary institutions in Saskatchewan, and we're one of them, and we're the only Indigenous institution. So there's a lot of our culture within our classroom. One of the things that I always try stress, because again, networking is my favorite. There's a concept in Cree called Wokotowin,
Mhm.
and that's community, right? Just everything is related to each other. We're not individual islands in an ocean. We're all interconnected somehow, whether it's through our familial DNA or just we're friends. Um, we're just a part of the same community. We're related to not just us as humans, but the environment as well. What we do affects the environment, and we talk about that in class a lot, about how we can, um, how do we conceptualize something that it seems so technical and sterile, but really it's a great allegory for how we interact with one another in our personal lives as human beings on this planet and as a part of the planet Earth and human beings. So I oftentimes use examples of fam- uh, just what we do can affect other people. So when I talk about our networks and things like that, yes, it makes those connections and brings us together, but it also gives a puts a bit of responsibility on us to maintain those connections and everything else like that. So yeah, I may be talking about fault tolerance and uh, fault tolerance and quality of service within my classroom, but at the same time I try to point out that we do this already as
Right.
human beings, and often honestly, networks and technology is a reflection of our humanity. It's not as sterile as everybody likes to think it is, because there's so much more to it, because it was created by human beings, and it's the creation of that was to facilitate that connection between humans, not just end devices.
That's amazing. And recently, you received not re- I shouldn't say recently, but you received the Cisco First Nations Award of Excellence in 2008. What did that recognition mean to you, and how do you continue to honor that legacy in your work today?
Oh, first of all, I was super surprised. I didn't even know I had been nominated for that. My coworkers were the ones who put me up for that, and I think there was 12, 11 or 12 that year that were given to everybody, and it meant a lot to me that my coworkers felt that I'd earned that. So I do my best to try and continue that. I continuously, well, I got that award that year, so I better continue to be better. And again, it's just that concept of trying to be my best, and hopefully I'm better than I was yesterday. So I always try to make sure that as I go through the years that I don't let anybody down. I want to
No,
be able to earn that.
no, we love the work that you're doing, and we wish you and your organization, both continued success. But finally, what advice would you give to young Indigenous women who aspire to enter the tech industry? Like a final piece of advice.
um, don't don't let anybody tell you you can't. Just because of who you are. That's the whole that's the whole thing that's always kept me going, is just that I if you have that sense of curiosity, I always tell my students that working in IT means you have to be a lifelong learner. And if you recognize that in yourself, doesn't matter whether you're male or female, um, whatever your uh, whatever your pronouns are, it doesn't matter, because what matters is that you have that desire to learn and you feel passionate about it. Don't let anybody take that away from you.
Mm.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for joining us today on the episode of Lipstick and Cyber. I mean, your journey, insights, and the commitment to Indigenous communities in the tech industry have been, super inspiring, and we're so grateful for your time and expertise today. So again, thank you.
Thank you for this, for having me.
And listeners, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you to everyone tuning in. We hope that today's conversation with Sharon has inspired you to explore the powerful connection between technology, heritage, and community building. A big thank you to our sponsors, F12.net, for making this podcast possible. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your network. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content that help you grow or start your business or apply the insights shared by Shannon to your work. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Lipstick and Cyber podcast. Until then, keep exploring, innovating, and staying secure. Thank you.